Should the Chancellor break Labour's biggest election promise and say, I'm sorry, we're going to have to increase taxes on workers, people with jobs, and put income tax up? I'd love your calls. 0207 862 2222. For more than a year, Rachel Reeves has been repeating she will not need to raise taxes on workers to top up public spending. But pressure is growing on her to do exactly that. This week, Britain's biggest bosses have come together at the Institute of Directors to urge the Chancellor to increase income tax to fund the government's spending on future projects. In most of the UK, you're allowed to earn 12.5 grand, roughly, without paying any tax. For everything above that, up to roughly 50,000, you pay 20% tax rate. From there, you're on the higher rate of 40% up to 125,000. And then after that, you pay 45%. And those numbers are different in Scotland, by the way, where the rate increases are more incremental. So she could go at those rates. The problem is she promised not to, Jeffrey, didn't she?
At two levels. One, it was in the party manifesto, on which you read and then decide how you will vote. Secondly, I attended her first budget, and she said, I'm having to be tough in this budget, but it will not happen again. You said in your programme that she's been saying it again and again. Those two, for me, are the key. The party the manifesto.
Yeah.
And the budget.
She did actually.
Clear statement.
It was a really interesting one, Aisha, where Rachel Reeves said, I know that was a painful budget, and she was obviously burnt herself by it, but I won't do anything like that again. And I remember thinking, oh, that's dangerous.
Well, quite a big hostage to fortune. I mean, I think when you go back and you look at the run-up to the last general election, in my view, I think perhaps the Labour Party boxed itself in too tightly by saying we will not touch any of the big three tax levers, VAT, income tax and national insurance contributions. And it's very, very difficult to try and generate anything that gets you close to those sums. And what has happened is that the Chancellor's had to sort of pick off individual groups who are getting very, very sort of cross, because she has said, look, there's been an indication that taxes are probably going to have to go up because we need more money for our public services, which are really important actually to the health of the economy of this country. So even though I feel conflicted about this, I feel that the economy is in such a parlous state, it would be better if she just used those big levers and explained to the public. But I understand it's very difficult politically to do that. But
because you're seeing government spending the public don't like on, for example, bits of the welfare budget is an obvious example, because Labour tried to cut it and they failed. So people will say, why aren't you cutting spending?
Correct. But there is also spending that is having a big effect. For example, there is spending going into defence right now, which is absolutely transforming large sections of the economy, providing jobs. The advanced manufacturing supply chain around the defence sector is huge. You look at what's happening in Glasgow, because of defence spending and this big contract with Norway, shipbuilding is, safe and so there are good things that are happening with the spending. Infrastructure spending, which is very, very
But in the end, it's all about caring for people in their old age.
The problem the Labour Party will have, I think, is having said they wouldn't and then doing it, people will say, what next?
Well, you might remember a politician called George Bush Sr., who was elected in '88, and he was told, you're going to have to raise taxes. And he said, read my lips, no new taxes. Yes. And then he had to raise them, and he was finished from the moment he raised them.
I mean, look, that is absolutely materialist. Personally, I think the time to have maybe done this was around the time of last year with the Munich Security Council, because that is a point where Donald Trump was, speaking with President Putin. There was a big conversation being had in this country, in European countries, about increasing defence spending. I think maybe that was the time to say, look, we are going to have to raise some income tax, a patriotic penny on the pound or something like that. Maybe that was the time to have done it.
Ray in Nottingham, hi.
Hello there, Jeremy.
Do you think they should just say, look, we're sorry we got this wrong, the numbers are worse than we thought, we're going to have to raise income taxes, we'll try not to do it again?
Yes, it's got to go up. There's no question of it. Initially, the Chancellor made this statement about holding things for 5 years. impossible to judge. Can you judge your shopping bill for the next in 5 years' time?
Well, I wouldn't. Yeah, you wouldn't have promised it on that basis. You wouldn't have promised to keep.
Plus the fact she's a chancellor who couldn't even fill in a CV correctly.
Right. Yeah.
You know, she has no credentials. What I would recommend is that we don't have enough tax bands. We have the 12.5, and then there's only two other tax bands. We need more tax bands.
How many do you need? Because Scotland have a different set of tax bands. It's just the tax code is so complicated, Ray. It's pages and pages, hundreds of pages. Do you need more tax bands? What do you want? You want to have a higher rate for people at the very top?
No, I think we should. It goes from 50,000 to 125. You've got to have a band in between somewhere. The calculation can be done by people with mathematical skills to work out the income for the government. And that's how you should.
You won't get very much in. More. Fiddling around with people who are on around 100,000 won't get you very much because there are not so many of them. The way to get more tax in is to go for people who earn about 50,000, and that's the. So you hit the squeeze middle. Wasn't it Theresa May who called them the just about managings?
Yes.
You can't just go for the rich. But Ray, maybe, as you're right, maybe she needs to. There's no choice. Thank you. Odette in another call in Clackmannanshire. Who was it earlier? We had Clackmannan. We had William. Are you married to William, Odette?
No, I'm not.
Do you know him?
No.
What about this? The first two calls from Clackmannanshire in the last 5 years are on the same day. Something weird is going on. What would you like to say, dear Odette?
I don't think it's right that they're going to increase income tax. It's just going to be people that are barely getting by.
Well, that was my point, that you have to go lower down, yeah. So you think it'll be the squeeze middle or whatever?
Of course it will. It always is. And I mean, you know, the Rachel Reeves has got access to money. I mean, it's just been revealed that there's 30 billion of Russian assets that the government took. So why don't they use that?
They've frozen them.
Well, they're frozen. You can't sell them off. But yeah, you're right. That would be a way of annoying Putin, wouldn't it? But they're only a one-off. That's the trouble. But maybe do you think, is there any way we could go with the first suggestion, which is that you don't hit people in the middle. You just really thwack the people at the very top end, the yacht owners.
Yeah, definitely.
Do that.
Squeeze the rich. They can afford it.
The problem with yacht owners is they can sail away. Genuinely, it's not even a joke. They've got options.
Why are we so worried about that? Because all their money is not necessarily here anyway.
Well, there we are, Jeffrey. You keep worrying about it.
Well, I haven't got a yacht.
What?
But no, I worry about it because many of these people who are leaving the country at the moment employ people and pay their wages every week and spend vast sums of money.
But this is trickle down. And Aisha, you've got a big disagreement. Trickle down doesn't work.
I don't like the attitude, they can go, it makes no difference. It does make a difference.
Can I put a counterpoint to that? I don't like the attitude of people who've got that amount of wealth saying, I don't want to contribute to this country and pay what will be a tiny amount of tax for them, because they enjoy all the public services that this country has to offer.
But they do pay tax.
Some of them do, but some of them pay a reduced amount of tax.
You're talking about people who are not in a job. You're talking about people with a mountain of cash in a bank account,
but
let's say.
This is the point. Some of these people are not employing hundreds of people, Jeffrey. Some of these people are just mobile, super rich people
here for 90 days.
Who but often come here because they like the other things in this country. They like our culture, they like our society, they like the public, everything that the public services hold up. I suppose I hear the argument that people are leaving. I'm not disputing that. But I would also say, if you enjoy this country and you're very rich, you should pay your fair share.
Okay.
I'm not worried about them not paying their fair amount. I'm worried about those people leaving who have paid their fair amount. I sat next to a man the other day who said, I'll pay $250,000 a year, Jeffrey, but I'm Spanish. I'm not willing to do hereditary tax, and I'm not willing to pay tax on earnings abroad.
How much?
But yes, I would like to live in this country.
In your lifetime, Jeffrey, how much tax do you think you've paid?
I have.
Yeah.
I pay every penny.
I know you do. How much do you think, like 20 million?
I don't know. My attitude has always been with tax. I have this frightening accountant who checks every penny.
Yeah, yeah.
So much so that in my loo there is a letter from HM tax officials saying, you've got your tax wrong, you paid 1 penny too many, and they've sent a check.
I want to try and get one more call, but the internet says you're worth 200 million, so I reckon you've paid 200 million in tax. Just to say, it's a hell of a lot. He's not got value for money, has he? Because he's been paying...
I love this country. Yeah. I'd rather live here than anywhere else.
That's fine, but you haven't had 200 million pounds worth of NHS operations.
Oh, no.
So, okay, so far as we know.
But I had... I had prostate cancer. I got in the queue. Yeah. They saved my life. Right. I'm very grateful.
OK, let's just try and get one more call in. Steve in Warwickshire, hi.
Hi, Jeremy.
What do you think? Should they just say, and, you know, they say that the numbers are against us, everyone, sorry, we weren't ready for a war in Ukraine, we need to raise income tax?
I think Lord Archer made a good point earlier on. I mean, the Labour broken promises, etc., etc. I think taxes do need to increase. However, I do believe when Farage gets in UK reform, I think people would accept it easier. And I think he'll have to do the same, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I don't see them as a tax-raising party. I see them as a party of spending cuts. But it's a whole other story with reform.
What's the difference?
Well, you cut spending or you raise taxes. Yeah. Oh. OK, Steve, thank you. Listen, we're going to move on. Later, it's the papers and everything else. Find out.